Welcome, pudding people, to another episode of Everybody Loves Pudding. I am your host, Ken Seymour. Today, I have a very interesting guest with me. Today is another interview with an actor, somebody that helps to create the things that distract us from our day-to-day grind and has been involved in some really great stuff. Miss Colleen Foy, thank you for joining us today.
Hi there. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
I have to say, I'm super excited, maybe not for the reasons that a lot of people would expect. I'm always excited when I get to talk to somebody in the industry, but one of your earliest credits just immediately sprung up as something that just creates a warmth and a joy. And I saw that you're on Sesame Street early on in your listing. It's like, oh, that's so cool.
Yes.
How did you get into Sesame Street?
I'm so glad that you're enthusiastic about it, because I like, if that was the only credit I had ever, like, okay, great, I'm good. Like, that's amazing. I got to go on Sesame Street. Everyone sort of recognizes that as being so classic. It was something it was actually the only thing my grandmother saw me do acting wise before she passed. So it has like a really special place in my heart, because thank God it was family friendly enough that she could see it. And also she knew how big it was. So it's really special. It's just really special to me. So I was working with the National Theater of the Deaf. I was the only hearing person in the company, but we were traveling with an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, which was just incredible. And the producers of Sesame Street saw it, were interested in us coming on. So we filmed 5 segments of the sign language word of the day. And so we taught we taught exercise and run and jump and dance, and it was incredible. It was incredible. Yeah. There's so many things I have to say about it. I could go on and on, but I don't want to sort of.
Well, you know, on our show, we encourage effusive speaking in any way that you like. I was wondering about that, because I saw that you were Alice in Alice in Wonderland in that production, and I saw that there was that kind of connection. It even kind of bridges to the current part that you play in Station 19. So but the big question before I kind of backtrack a little bit into history is I had to wonder. I was lucky enough to be in a production of Alice in Wonderland in college, and the question that came to me when you're putting on a production that is in the theater for people that are going to have hearing impairments. I know a lot of times when in a normal production, you're project, make sure that everybody can hear you, and everything is kind of exaggerated in certain ways so that everybody in the back seats can get to everything. How does a production for people with hearing impairments change? How do you do something similar for them? How's that work?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question. And I'm glad you asked it, because I think the more that productions, whether it's stage or TV or film, the more that they have an understanding of how we can make things accessible, the greater the audience grows. And the more that hearing, deaf, visually impaired people all have the same experiences. They should be accessible to everyone. So I voiced everything on stage. So it was a little bit, it changed from character to character. So I, as Alice, would say, like, why am I talking with my hands? Wait, Rabbit, where are you going? I'm late. I'm late. I'm late. What do you mean you're late? So I would be sort of like voicing him, sort of interpreting for him, and doing different voices for each of the characters. So that's how it worked. Yeah.
So it's kind of like you were almost the storyteller for the whole thing. That's really cool.
Yes. And the character of Alice was a hearing girl who spoke until she fell down the rabbit hole, and boom, she starts talking with her hands. So as she's figuring it out, some of the characters would help her a little bit with sign language. And so it also became a little educational while being entertaining. And then we did a performance in Illinois. So we traveled all over the country. We did a performance in Illinois where it was also described for the visually impaired. So they would have like a device in their ear, and there was someone who worked with us in a rehearsal, and he had basically a script of how he would describe everything happening. So we could have in one row of the audience a hearing person, a deaf person, and a blind person sitting next to each other and all enjoying the same performance, which I just think is incredible.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Being able to reach as many people with a good story is
Yes.
really something that has always been important to me, because having that shared experience is what kind of creates our 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 heritage, our pop culture, everything that kind of goes with it. And the more that we can share,
Yes.
the cooler it is, because then you can talk to everybody that has the different opinions. Like, I didn't think of it in certain ways because I can't think of it in certain ways because of my
Exactly.
life experiences. So,
Yeah.
so how did you get started into acting in the first place? Was this something that was always a burning passion, or did you
Mm.
kind of stumble into this?
Yeah, it was always a burning passion, and in hindsight, likely a source of annoyment for my family, because I'm always, as a kid, always acting, always singing, always, working on something and forcing them to sit on the couch and watch me perform, and writing plays, and I wrote a play, and my fifth grade class actually performed it. It was a Christmas play, and so luckily I had a little bit of encouragement from folks who saw that it wasn't just it was I just wanted to do it so bad and all the time, and my I just sort of thought that way. I mean, you probably can relate. I think in stories, and I want to I want to create things that can sort of represent my expression and my feelings. I think some of us, we just we have that predisposition, and so I always had that, and like I said, was just performing all the time and writing plays, and um, uh, would create songs and create dances, and all the time. And then I did it in high school, and then majored in theater in college, um, uh, and was trying to learn as much about the business as I could while being in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So yeah, so when I did professional theater in Milwaukee while I was in college, one of the actresses who I had looked up to for so long, she said, oh, I don't know if I should say this. She said, "Get out." Like, she said, her and her husband were part of this incredible experimental theater company in Milwaukee, and he had just had a heart attack the year before. They didn't have health care. They're making incredible art, but they didn't have certain things in their lives that they wanted to show for it. So she was like, basically, get out. Like, if you can, if you have that desire. Otherwise, you will always be having another job while
Right.
pursuing this in Milwaukee. So so I tried as hard as I could to learn about the business. I interviewed everyone that had ever gone to my school and ended up in Los Angeles. I interviewed them, and what I wanted to know was, like, what are your budgets? How much do you spend on gas, on groceries, on headshots, on casting websites? How do you get an agent to start with? So by the time I moved out to LA, the burning desire that I had always had was matched with some knowledge. There was a lot more knowledge that I did not have.
Well, there's always that.
Yes. Yes. So yeah.
That's and it's got to be kind of, every time I hear a story that's similar to this, it's got to be kind of scary in a certain extent, because you're foraging out into the unknown, not just a completely different geographical area, but a different local cultural environment, and trying to understand the intricacies. I can almost speak today of how the business works, while at the same time, I'm sure probably not trying to let that dominate everything, so you can create the character that you're doing at the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone kept saying to me, "You need to have thick skin. You need to have thick skin, thick skin." And all the characters that I play are sensitive individuals. You know, so I do a lot of crying on TV. I will cry for SAG credit, you know.
I like it. I usually just do that on my own in a dark room with
Oh,
a
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
half full
Yes.
glass of something as I look over my last emails with a very polite no from whoever it is I want to talk to next.
Well, wherever you can, yeah.
Oh, exactly, exactly. So, do you now, when you really got into this, was your goal to be okay? I am going to be a theater actress, or was it? I really do want to do a little bit of everything, or I want to focus on television. Where was your goal at?
Ooh, well, my goal was TV and film because assumed that I would always be doing theater. I assumed it would always sort of be a part, but I knew that it's hard. It's hard to break into TV and film. And that's putting it sort of as mildly as possible. So I knew that that would take a lot of work, and that my focus had to really be strong with that. I also was doing commercials at the time and was like dabbling in voiceover. I'm no longer pursuing voiceover. I'm no longer pursuing commercials because TV and film really is my focus.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you some of your voiceover work are in some fairly well-known products. I mean, between Hitman Absolution and
Yes.
Final Fantasy VIII, it, so you actually got to do some mocap on top of the voice
Yes.
work. What was that like? Going into that, it's like, yeah, we want you to talk, but also here are some ping pong balls.
Well, okay, so I did 3 weeks of motion capture work on Hitman Absolution, and it was the best. I remember leaving after my first day and I thought, oh my God, I found it. Like, I love this because I was what is called a utility player. So I was there every single day doing every single role that either they were like kind of casting me, or there were days where some of the big name actors in that project were not available. So I would stand in for some of these actors, and one of them was a young actress. I think Isabel Furman.
Uh,
She was a kiddo at the time. She still might be. I don't know. Time is a weird thing. So I did a lot of her work while she was supposed to be acting with let's say Powers Booth or uh, Stephen Bauer, John Grise. So I would do some of the, she did all of her own work. And then when they were there, I would be standing in for her. So I got to act with some of the greats
right. And
in this
that's kind of where
business.
I was leading, because like Powers Booth, he was amazing. I mean, that had to have been just an incredible experience, even if it wasn't in a more traditional set style
Right.
situation. What was it like to have somebody with that level of experience to be able to just kind of bounce back and forth and create with?
Well, I tried to stay as present as I could because there's a little bit of like, oh my God, it's Powers Move. It's Powers Move. And also a little bit of like, this is the weirdest setting ever to be working in, you know? And so with all of that, I wanted to stay as present as possible so I could take in what he was doing. And I tell you, these guys, because they've done it for so long and they are so good, everything was wonderful. Everything was wonderful. And of course, there were adjustments of because when you're on camera, it's not a 360 like it is in the motion capture volume, where they literally have cameras 360 degrees. So
Right.
we were learning together, which was uh, fantastic. So fantastic to be sort of like, okay, we're in this together. Mr. Booth. William Mapother was there every single day as well. He, yeah, he did all the motion capture work for Hitman. And he was just so lovely. He felt like an uncle and has kept in touch and just how are you doing? He's just fantastic. I have nothing to say but incredible things from working on that. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Again, I could go on and on and on. But
Well, and being a huge nerd myself and loving video games, just that whole side of the creation process, always just listening and being able to point out in a game. I try and go in blind. It's like, okay, I don't want to know who's involved in production.
sure.
Can I pick out their voices? Can I pick out their performances? And just
Mm,
those little giggly moments where you go, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
Were you a fan of video games beforehand, or did this maybe spark some interest in video games afterwards?
Oh, I think I was a fan, but that took it to the next level. That took it to the next level because things have just gotten so much more cinematic. I mean, I think for Hitman Absolution, we had like a 200-page script. A
Ooh.
script for all of these cut scenes. I had and reading it was like reading a film. So because technology had progressed so much, it was really like stepping into this incredible cinematic world, kind of what I imagine, and hopefully we'll experience one day. It's like to shoot something like a Marvel film. I'm putting that out there as we speak. So, with the green screen and, someone is standing next to you and they're on stilts and they've got dots all over their face, or I'm on stilts and have dots all over my face. It's just so exciting and it's so collaborative. It's so collaborative. There's a video game I worked on that was canceled, and I signed so many NDAs that I have terrible fear that my excitement will at some point overwhelm me. It was canceled and it was devastating, but we had worked for a very long time on it. And when we got into the volume, they would match us up, and I could see my character and see her clothes
Oh,
on the monitors. So I was watching myself with my wardrobe and my fantastic wardrobe on these monitors, and it's just so mind-blowing, the collaboration of it all. So I really hope to do a lot more.
that's super cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's have the nerd test then. Being a
Oh boy.
fan of video games, this it's an easy test. I don't like to give hard tests. What is your favorite game? If you were to sit down in front of the TV, you've had a hard day, I want to escape into a game. What would you play?
Oh, what I've been liking is Ghost of Tsushima. Am I saying that right?
I'm going to assume so. I'm very good at massacring names.
Because I've actually never said it out loud. I have a couple friends who are in that, and gosh, I just think it's stunning, and I just think it's so stunning. Not just the visual images, but sort of the story that they're telling. Yeah.
That's super awesome. Um, so, well, I usually ask this one later, but since you kind of brought up the whole Marvel thing, I usually ask people who have not already been in a film based on a comic book, since we tend to focus a lot
Mm.
of our podcast on that, the intersection of film, television, and comic strips and comic books. Who would you love to play if you had, could have your pick of anything? What would be your character?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All of them. No, I
Now, are you a Marvel person or a DC person? Independent comics? What is your bread and
well,
butter?
I would say I'm a little picky and choosy, a little bit of a cherry picker. I'm really excited for the Eternals coming out.
Yeah.
I don't really care that the reviews have been less than stellar. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what they do because I think it might change the landscape of those kinds of movies. The one. Oh, sorry. Oh boy, my mind's everywhere. My mind's like ping ponging. Um, um, I've seen the first Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot
Mhm.
several times. It really, that to me is just a fantastic movie.
It's well
Bef
done.
yeah, before that, I probably watched the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies more than anything. But I know that they're going to do a third Wonder Woman movie, Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot. I really hope that it's a little bit of a return to the form from the first film. Yeah, I was left so bummed after the second one.
Well,
Um,
so you can't always hit it out of the park, and there were still
no,
elements that were fun, and
sure.
the actors did fantastic. I know we talked about that. It's like I like the first Wonder Woman so much, and then I went to the second. It's like, well, it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For sure, they can't all be winners.
Right.
And as long as they're getting the opportunity to tell the story again, they can look at what pieces perhaps worked and what didn't, and yeah, get back in the kitchen.
So okay, so okay, divert just a moment because this one's been eating at me. It's, you know, you get that moment, you get that thought that pokes in the back of the, ask this
Yes, I know
question,
that.
ask this question. Okay, so going over all of your list of different productions that you've been involved with, whether they're television or film, one short film kind of jumped out at me, and I had to ask just because it sounds kind of awesome, even if it's just a short thing. Sassy gay friend Hamlet.
Yes.
That sounds fantastic. What exactly is that? And how did you get to be in that as Ophelia?
Oh my gosh. Oh, cool. So my friend Brian Gallivan, who is an incredible, now he writes for TV, he creates for TV. He's a big name dude. We met in acting class, and he was an improver from Chicago. So he had done a lot of sketch, a lot of improv, and one of his sort of recurring pieces was he is sassy gay friend who pops up into all of these situations. Mine happened to be Ophelia's situation in Hamlet. He pops up and he's like, what are you doing? It's Hamlet. One of my favorite lines from our short film is, "There is something rotten in Denmark, and it's his piss poor attitude." Um, so he saves me from drowning myself and realizing like I can do better than Hamlet. So he was at the time pursuing acting, and his manager wanted him to like film some of these sketches. So he asked me to do it, and it became this viral hit. In fact, of all the things, a certain group of people will come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, when I was in middle school, we just loved Sassy Gay Friend. We loved Hamlet." And I'm like, cool, 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 cool. I feel old now. But there's a certain group of people, it's a lot of like theater people who are like, "Oh my gosh, loved Sassy Gay Friend." It became this strange viral hit, but I think it's because I mean, Brian is such a good writer. He's so clever. He's so smart. He's incredible. So
Well, I think it may be one of the reasons I thought it might resonate with me is being a fan of theater. You've seen every Shakespeare play a
Mhm.
million times, so any slightly different interpretation, a little different take on it is just so nice to see and just kind of
Yes.
to play with and to create something new out of. And that had to have just been, I feel like if I were involved with it, I would not be able to not giggle every time that started recording. It's like, oh wait, we got to start over again.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. It was so silly. And we shot it in the middle of a park. And so when people were walking by, they're like, "Oh, this girl's about to jump off a bridge, and there's a guy with a fabulous scarf." Yes, we're having a blast. We're having the time of our lives. Keep walking, get your steps in. Yeah, it was great.
So going from the silly to the
Yes.
significantly more serious.
Yes.
Um, so you were in There Will Be Blood, and a fairly important role in that. And you know that was such an impressive film to begin with, but it's like I said, it's like a pendulum swing from being kind of silly to just being what on the outside I would feel like would be a very intense production of that particular piece. What was it like to be involved with that? And was Daniel Day-Lewis as intense as I have heard that he is on set?
Um, so he was not that way with me. I think so. It was my very first film, and I think perhaps he knew that I was um, maybe needing a little encouragement. I got down to Texas and they cut, my hair was super long and they cut it off to go period piece. And one day as I was leaving, I didn't see him, but I hear, I like your haircut. And I turn around and Daniel's sitting on his steps of his trailer. And in hindsight, I should have walked over and said, thank you so much. Let's chat a little bit. But I was like, thank you. Oh my God, and got to my car, got back to the hotel. So lovely, just so lovely. Of course, he was not in the middle of shooting right then and there.
Right.
But like how giving, how incredible. Yeah. Yeah. So he was just lovely.
Oh, the
Yeah.
director is quite the individual too.
Yes.
I've joked with my co-host a couple of times about this. There are a handful of directors that kind of follow this and that will have a number of films that they do that are just very impressive, and then 70 music videos.
Yes.
So, I mean, for our listeners that are not aware, the director of There Will Be Blood also did Boogie Nights and Punch Drunk Love, and so just kind of seems like he would have a handle on something like this pretty well. What was it like to work with? Did you get to work with him directly?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think, yeah, he's great. And actually, I love his films and I love his music videos too. He can really kind of do it all. And he has a new one coming out soon, Licorice Pizza, with Philip Seymour Hoffman's son.
I'm nervous about that one. I really
You
want to
are?
like it. Well, it's just,
I do too. I do too.
it's like because Philip Seymour Hoffman was such an amazing actor. It's like I really want this to go well for him,
So yes, I want it to go well too. Yeah.
and it's
Uh,
just crazy. Now, just a quick note. It's really important when you have these brushes up with to fame to kind of capitalize on that momentum. At least I've been told that on multiple times. So what I'm going to do to capitalize it right now is turn it over and talk about our social media right now. Don't forget, Pudding People, to catch us on all of our social media to keep up to date with what's going on in the world of pudding. Where are you most active, Richard?
Well, you could see some of my activity on our Instagram account.
Would that happen to be at Pudding Guys?
That one would, yes.
Amazing. You know what? That is also our Facebook. So you can about once a month see
If you're lucky.
something. If you're lucky, we'll post something on Facebook. We're probably most on Twitter at Real Pudding Guys. But of course, you can catch us on Patreon as
Pudding Guys.
That's right. Where for just $1 a day, you can support us as we bring you new interviews, new material, new stuff to make our interviews and material look better. It's just fantastic for only $1 a month. A paltry
sum. Not a lot.
No, not really.
It really isn't. That's actually $12 over the course of a year.
Right. Small change to help the Pudding Guys keep going. And we love our supporters. We look forward to seeing you on social media. Now, wasn't that informative and fun? Almost
Absolutely.
like being on Sesame Street, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've got to ask. Your current show that you're on is a spinoff of a terribly popular show, Grey's Anatomy, and I have to wonder. Whenever you go into a project that's its own project, you're fresh. You've got what feels like a blank slate to create whatever it is. Do you feel like it's a different environment when it's something that is kind of spun off from something that's already this enormous hit?
Yeah, Absolutely. I do feel like there's this is going to sound so unartistic, but there's a brand that they've established and that they're looking to continue. Um, so it's not just necessarily a Shondaland entity, right? But it's also like Shonda Rhimes for Thursday nights on ABC has kind of dominated. They would call it "Thank God It's Thursday," and it would be back to back sort of Shonda Rhimes shows.
Right.
Shonda Rhimes produced and created shows, so it's not like they're going, let's just try something totally different. There's already a established brand. There's a tone, there's a rhythm, there's certain topics that things will focus on. So, but I do think that every single director or writer who works on the show is looking to say, how do we stay fresh? If this is already established, how do we keep people interested, rather than having sort of the same thing, the same thing, the same thing? And I think that's kind of, uh, as I'm talking about it now, maybe something that every business person has in mind. How do we keep our established brand continuous while creating a lot of exciting variety within that brand? So yeah, it's very different than, let's say there was a show that I did for Sundance, for the Sundance Now, and then it was on Sundance TV, and they were really creating it as they went. And then season 2, they wanted to go a little more comedic, and I think it was so creative. The writers and the showrunners were also the lead actors. It was very much in the moment, whereas something like Station 19 feels a little bit like this gorgeous concocted recipe that we're serving again and again to what feels like family, because there's already this incredible audience with a huge fan base. So it's like having family over and they want that recipe. So
That makes sense. I know a lot of my favorite shows are like that. Just being able to come back to it, it's like, this does kind of feel like home. And
yeah.
so when your character was introduced, was it originally planned for a larger arc, or was it one of those things where we'll bring you in and it's like, oh, well, actually we've got something that we can really explore with this, and it grew from there?
Uh, I was booked for one episode, and my character was a woman in a abusive marriage, and she has a deaf son, and the firefighters come to check on a gas leak at my house, and through that they convinced me to leave my husband with my child. And I was planting the seeds of chemistry with, with one of the firefighters, and because of that they saw that it was sort of fertile ground, and they brought me back for 13 episodes after that. So
That's super cool. In my mind, I have this imagination from an actor standpoint when you're in that particular role, and I always like imagine that there's some sort of they've got ways to measure the response of the people watching the show, of how they react to certain things. I just imagine a minute by minute thing where you're going, it's like, okay, come on, pick up on. Oh, there it is. They like that. I'm coming back. Woo!
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. You're always trying to like stay in the moment. This is what it is, but also like, I would like them to bring me back, please. So yeah.
So when you found out that you were going to be a more permanent part of the show, how does that work? Because I've seen that happen on a number of occasions. One of my favorite shows, the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Spike character was not intended to be there for an extended period of time, but he ended up staying because people liked him so much. So when you come in for that individual role, do they just feverishly go into the writing room? Okay, what are we going to do, and then present you, or is it more of a collaboration? Okay, so we want to create this to be as organic as possible, and we want that to fit your personality. And then do they go to you, or do they just kind of say, "Hey, here's your stuff. Let's go."
Yeah. I would just get scripts as they came. I think they had, I think what's unique is that the COVID pandemic happened. Don't know if you heard about it, COVID. No, okay.
I've been in my house for too long. I don't know what's going on.
um, they were able to, so our Station 19 and Grey's Anatomy incorporated the pandemic into their storytelling. I know some shows were like, nope, we ain't doing it. Regular life, we don't need that. But they incorporated that into their storytelling. So there were a lot of scenarios where they wanted the firefighter to move in with us. And so the woman that we were staying in, sort of the safe house, she was elderly and got COVID. And I was worried about being kicked out on the street. So they, I think, had a lot of, they were starting with a lot of plot points that were necessary because of the way that the world was reacting to what was going on. So I think within all of those plot points, every episode, I feel like they got a clear sense of my voice, a clear sense of sort of how I interact, and they gave me a just incredible arc where I really sort of find myself after being sort of in an abusive relationship and hoping that this fireman also then likes me, growing in a place where I feel more confident and have a little more autonomy, where I'm making my own choices rather than in reaction to other things happening. So yeah, I think the writers are fantastic on that show. Yeah.
So being involved with this for an extended period of time, and you've had multiple kind of guest spots on great shows like Castle and things like that. What is your favorite part of the production process, whether that's coming in for just an individual episode or being on for a longer period of time? What's kind of gives you that little internal squeal of joy whenever you get to do something?
Well, I'm prone to internal squeals of joy.
Me too.
Great. But I loved having a home. It's I love having a home at Station 19. I go in, I get to catch up on what's going on in everyone's lives, and every time I was there, I think I noticed more and more things. Like the set decoration in my house was just incredible. But every time I was there, I would find a new little treasure. I was like, oh my gosh, of course she has this book on her shelf, or I would notice the kinds of candies that they would have in a little candy dish. So I think sometimes when you're new to a set, especially in COVID times, where like you can't hang out on set, you can't hang out and just sort of be there. You sort of pop into set, you see, you do your thing, everything's a little bit crazy, everyone's a little, it's rushed, and then you go back to your sort of holding. Because I was there again and again, I just got to know people better. I got to like see the value in all the aspects of what they were doing. For example, we did a lot of FaceTime calls on this show this past year. So seeing Chuck Gordon is our video playback on Station 19, and he was so incredible with what he was able to do so that we could have the screens that we had. He had a fake cell phone for me for one episode where it would respond to my thumb, and then I could hit 911 and it would say dialing, but of course it wasn't dialing 911. So just like the magic of that, I haven't gotten used to that, or it hasn't worn off, the specialness of that. So had I only been around, popped in for one, I wouldn't have seen all the value of all those things. I love collaborating with people. I love it so much. And the more you're there, the more you feel comfortable chatting, and you feel comfortable looking and touching and all that good stuff.
That small detail, that right there, that's the awesomeness. I laugh, as being on this side of the production, just seeing it from the other side, it's easy to not understand why certain things are the way they are, or have things kind of bother you but not realize why. Like for me, seeing, like you're talking about the cell phones, seeing cell phones that are not any cell phone in the market do not look anything like this. Like,
Right.
why couldn't they just get well, there's probably a reason they couldn't just get an iPhone in there.
Right.
So trying to make it as real as you can within the constraints of budget and time and all the other
Yeah.
things is always just kind of fascinating. Do you tend to work with a lot of the other production crew? Do you tend to see, see pal around, say the key grip, I don't know, something like that? Do you
Yes.
get to see that side of the production and see what it is that they do to make things work?
Yes, although I do feel really limited in the last year and a half because they want us so separated. I have in the past, like when I did Castle, when I did Code Black, I would rather not have my stand-in sit in for me or stand in for me. I want to be there because I want to see what's going on. I really and overhearing what they're saying, because what I would really love to do is shadow some of them and just sort of see what they do. I also feel like, kind of like we were saying before, the more exposure we have to different kinds of stories, the better. The more exposure I have to your art form and how it all works together with his art form and my art form and her art form, the more we understand that, the more we have respect for each other. And I think the better we will all work together. So I wish that I had more of that experience on set, but recently it's just been pretty separate. Yeah.
Unfortunate realities. I don't like those.
Yeah. Yes.
Those
Unfortunate realities.
those
Yeah.
are the bad realities.
Totally.
So okay, so you've got another production coming out here soon, hopefully somewhat soon.
Yes.
A new film called Blonde. Now this is a biopic on Marilyn Monroe. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I know you're kind of limited in what you can talk about this, but were you a Marilyn Monroe fan before being involved with this production?
Yeah, absolutely. I think she kind of stands for glamour. And then, of course, you get to know a little bit more about how troubled her life was and how manipulated she was. And in some ways, how much of a victim she was to this industry and this image of glamour and Hollywood becomes a little tainted. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we all want to hope that that things are on the up and up when everybody's putting together. But it's the real world. There are going to be some instances where people that should not be involved with things are definitely going to take advantage of people. And you see that in the music, especially the early music industry, just all the time. People that should have made just a massive amount of money and didn't because their manager or the record label that they were dealing with just intentionally put the screws to them, and they weren't able to do what they needed to do. And it's just kind of not it. I don't want to say depressing. It is, but it's hopefully a teachable moment for future generations. Now, if you had to choose a favorite film of Marilyn Monroe's, what would it be?
I think Some Like It Hot. Some Like It Hot, I find enjoyable in so many ways. She has a lot of great films. I think she's a much better actor than people give her credit for.
She slid right into whatever she was doing, and it was like it was effortless.
Absolutely. But Some Like It Hot is just, man, it's just incredible. It's incredible. I actually think there is, well, in the script of Blonde, there is some Like It Hot in there. They're actually doing Some Like It Hot. So I hope that a friend of mine, is playing Tony Curtis.
Oh,
so yeah. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get to see a little bit of that, but that's just incredible movie. It's so fun. Yeah.
I've always liked that one. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is also a favorite. That was really well. She, like I said, at least in terms of her performances,
Yes.
she was always fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
When you were preparing for your part in this film, again, trying to stay as vague as I can.
Yeah.
Is your character a created character, or is it a character that has real historical place in what happened?
Ooh, I think my character is a created character in a very real historic situation. Um, uh, my character's name is Pat. We guess we can say that.
Well,
So
it's on
I
IMDb, so I hope
right, absolutely, yeah. So I don't necessarily think you look through the books and be like, oh, there's Pat. But there's a situation where there were people like Pat right there. So yeah, it's a real person. Real no, I'm sorry, created person in a real situation. What is real? What is made up? I don't
I
know.
don't know anymore.
Yeah.
Well, what's your biggest takeaway before this comes out? When after now the production is done and it's just waiting for it to happen. What was the coolest part about making the film for you?
Oh. Oh my goodness. May I say a couple things? You
As
said
many as you like.
coolest. Okay, the first one, which is a little basic, we shot in a place called Diamond Bar in Los Angeles. Exactly. That facial expression, exactly. Yes. You just have to keep driving, just keep driving. And it was sort of an abandoned care facility. Um, and they film a lot there because it's kind of frozen in time. I don't know if you've ever seen images of like, well, if you look at any images of like Chernobyl, and you see sort of the Ferris wheel or like the kindergarten, it has that feel, only it's not overgrown by all the leaves and foliage. It's preserved in time. So just being there was incredible. Added to that is the wardrobe. We actually had oh my gosh, I had so many like undergarments, like a corset and tights, but they clip into this thing, and there's also like cone shaped bras. So like that kind of stuff is just like, it's just so cool. Even if it wasn't going to be a big film and Ana de Armas wasn't in it and Julianne Nicholson wasn't in it, it would still be so fucking cool. Excuse my language.
Oh, you're just
Um, and so that was amazing. And then also being able to witness, Ana de Armas has leading actress energy, right?
oh, okay.
She sort of exudes, she has this presence. And it's the thing that they talk about with some of these actors, just sort of like, I couldn't keep my eyes off her. I like, she just has this presence that was incredible, just incredible. So watching her sort of own the space, own the character, she had worked so hard on the voice, the mannerisms. It was incredible. And there was a dialect coach on set who would come up to her and say, it's like "Hua, hua," and she'd repeat it back. We'd take it another again. So watching that was incredible. But lastly, Julianne Nicholson has been one of my favorite actresses for a long time. So to interact with her was great. When I was wrapped filming, I instead of going straight to my car, I went and found her in the makeup trailer, and I said, excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you're getting ready. I said, I have admired your work for a very long time. And so to be able to work with you and know that you're such a lovely, wonderful person only makes me more of a fan. I've appreciated every moment. And she was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to run to my car now and scream. I kind of couldn't believe that I did it, but it's one of those things where when I should have gone like, after Daniel Day-Lewis was like, good haircut, I should have gone like, thank you so much. Let's talk shop. I wanted to get that moment. I want to get that moment with some of these people who I have long admired. I sometimes can't believe that I was just a girl from Wisconsin who's like getting to interact with all these incredible people. I wanted to let her know. I just admire the crap out of you in every way. And I did. And so I felt victorious. So yeah.
Definitely. That getting those moments with the people that essentially just had a strong effect on who you are, because I mean that's what it is. As we're absorbing art, it is affecting us. It's not not like, video game violence is going to make you go out and shoot people affecting us, but it
Right.
does, it helps to kind of have us reflect, not
Mhm.
just on what is being created in front of us, but on who we are and how we relate to the world around us. And seeing those people that are at the front, that are the face of the project, is just kind of moving. And I think that's maybe why things like Comic-Con and Wizard World, that's why they have such followings. I've talked to some people, it's like, why would you pay that much money just to have a signed autograph? It's like, what? Why wouldn't you? I mean, these
Right.
are the people that are making my life better from what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's just kind of an awesome thing. The only thing I wish, and this is kind of having had a small peek behind the veil, I really wish that there was a way to have the average viewer, consumer, see the writers and see the production
Oh.
crew that are also
Ooh.
as important as the actors, and just go, oh, you have been involved on all of these projects and you made
Yeah.
this part of it that was so good, like the people that put together the sets on Station 19. That's a lot of work to make something that's not real feel real.
Yes.
And we just kind of see it wash into the background, but if it wasn't right, it would be obvious.
Yes. Oh, that's actually a fantastic idea to meet some of those folks, because their talent absolutely, like, it sews the story together. And I think they deserve so much more credit than they get, and they deserve some time in the spotlight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think that.
Yeah.
So are there any other projects? Do you have any, say, theatrical projects, or are you going to be going back to the stage anytime soon, or are you going to continue on with TV?
I would go back to the stage in a heartbeat if it worked out. Right now in Los Angeles, theater is a little slow getting back together, a little slow. So hopefully that will shift a little bit. Um, and then, what's interesting is last time I auditioned for a play, I had this incredible callback and it was so good. And then they cast a TV star in the role, because it sold tickets. Well,
Right.
I'm sure she was wonderful in the role, and she's highly qualified.
Well, there's no denying I can't even say it, name recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of me thinks, well, if I want to do theater, I should become more of a name. So I'm more of a name so I can get paid nothing to do art for the masses.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So one final, completely unrelated question to anything. We always ask this, everybody, because, as we've been talking about, we love things that connect people. And what connects people more than food? With a name like Everybody Loves Pudding, you gotta have at least one food question. But we, instead of talking about pudding, we talk about pizza. Are you a pizza person?
Love pizza. Love pizza. Oh, yeah.
New York style? Or are you Chicago style? If you had to pick a specific place, what is your pizza place?
My pizza place is Masa of Echo Park. It's deep dish. The owner is from Chicago, but I'll tell you what, I had a birthday a couple weekends ago, and I had Masa, so I had Chicago one night. The night after, I had Detroit style pizza.
Nice.
Here in Los Angeles, which is like pan, and it's super duper doughy. It's kind of, I think of it as like the inverse of Chicago style.
Right.
But with Chicago, you get all the cheese and the tomatoes on top. I want it now that we're speaking about it. I love pizza. I could have pizza every day.
It is the binding, one of the binding foods that nearly everybody loves.
Yeah.
Well, just so that our listeners know, if you want to find out what Miss Colleen Foy is doing, she is on Instagram. You're at Colleen Foy on Instagram,
That's it.
correct? And your website is colleenfoy.com.
Yes.
If you want to see some very good HTML, just pop by there at any time. Yeah. Are you on Twitter or Facebook or anything?
I am on Twitter, Colleen Foy. I keep it very simple. Colleen Foy, colleenfoy.com. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, excellent. You should definitely follow her and take a look at what she's doing. She obviously has a track record of some very cool stuff that she does, and you should definitely follow her. I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And I hope to talk to you again here after a little while and see what else that you've been up to.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.